Welcome back to the Eating Podcast. I'm really excited because this particular series that I'm doing in the month of November highlights so many amazing people that are from my past in Evansville, Indiana, and some folks who are new to me that are in the Evansville community that I didn't know. But Miss Burton, who is here with me today, is someone I don't. I remember her, but I was such a little kid at the time growing up in Evansville that sometimes I was kind of like in the background just seeing all these different amazing people that I would just watch in the community. And so Miss Lana Burton was one of those people, and I'm so delighted that she is on the podcast today. Y'all, please welcome Miss Lana Burton to the Eat Me podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Glad to be of service.
Oh, so excited. So it's so interesting, y'all. There's so many amazing folks in my hometown that are doing wonderful things. And Miss Burton is definitely one of those people. And so growing up, I always remembered you. And then you're probably like, what? I remember seeing you a lot at different events, particularly for, I think it was like, were you a part of the Black Women's
Task force.
Task Force? Were you a part of that?
Yes.
Yes, and so my mother was also a part of this task force, and every year they had a dinner where they would celebrate, women, amazing women in Evansville, and also they provided scholarships. I actually received one of the scholarships through the task force as well, and so I just always remembered seeing you, doing so many amazing things, and so I'm just so honored that you are able to be here on the podcast to just one talk about just the amazing things that have historically taken place in Evansville in the Black community, as well as some current things that are also happening as well. And so, for those who might not know, Miss Burton was also, you were one of the co founders of the African American Museum as well, right?
Well, Sandra likes to say that. Um, Sandra Matthews, it was her brainchild.
Right.
And once she um, came up with the idea of starting the Evansville African American Museum, then I was behind her 150%. And so I helped her in any way that I could. And, it was sometimes as simple as she was doing mailing, as they were getting ready, that she may need some money to buy postage stamps or something else. So, I
Hmm.
may give her some money to do that. So that was kind of her way of saying that, uh, I was one of three people that helped her as she was getting off the ground. And the other one was Connie Robinson
Oh,
Blair
yes.
and Alice Weathers, who at the time was uh, the CEO of Cape Community Action Program of Evansville. And as Connie Robinson Blair is the longest serving city council person in Evansville, and she served, I want to say, 24 years on city council here in
Hmm.
Evansville. So between the three of us, she always talks about us just helping to get the museum off the ground.
That's amazing. And it's so interesting to me because and the reason why I bring that up is because my mom would always tell me about that particular section. So if you're ever in Evansville, Indiana, the African American Museum is actually a building that was it's actually the building that it was it's in now was actually apartments at one point in Evansville, a part of the housing project. It was a part of the Evansville Housing Authority, correct?
Right. Yes, Lincoln Gardens.
Lincoln Gardens,
And
right.
it was the buildings, Lincoln Gardens was part of President Roosevelt's New Deal.
Mm.
And so that was part of it. And then Eleanor Roosevelt actually came to Evansville
Wow.
when it was built.
I had no idea. Wow, that's so interesting. And another thing too for that particular building, apparently one of those apartments that was in that building my mom lived in.
Oh, really?
Yes, and so that was always her thing, especially when the museum was being built. She kept saying, "Yeah, I used to." You remember my mom's voice.
Right. Hmm.
I lived in one of those apartments. I just thought that was so. It was just so like near and dear to my heart because it's like, wow, that's a piece of my history in some way. It's so beautiful to know that. Um, and another thing that was really interesting in terms of so there's an actual apartment that's like that was kind of reconstructed to look like what the apartments looked like at the
Yes,
creation of those apartments. When that was actually created, I don't know if you know, but like what like the actual like furniture and all that stuff, was that something that was original or did they recreate all that
they
to
recreated, and a lot of
okay.
that. Bill Miller, who at the time was also the person that kind of helped with the building and the building
Uh-huh.
plans, because he used to be an industrial arts teacher, and so he knew, how to do it and stuff. So he, found a lot of the furniture, and people donated it
Wow.
to make it look like it would have in the 1930s. And so it's real interesting when young people come, they look at it and it, is really small. But
Right.
during the time when they built the projects, that people don't know that you had to be married in order to be there in there. And you think about projects in 2025, anybody,
Right.
a lot of single parents and stuff, but that wasn't the case when it was built. You had to be married, and you had to meet income guidelines, from what I remember people
Mm.
talking about.
Oh, that is so
And
wow. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And I was going to say, and they also during that time had like a preschool, and for the young people that were there. And we also have to remember that during the time when it opened, that a lot of African Americans, not only in Evansville but in other places, lived in shotgun houses and
Mhm.
houses with dirt floors and so forth.
Right.
So people really felt like moving into Lincoln Gardens was really a step up as far as better housing.
Yeah, and you know what's so interesting? I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 years ago on my podcast, I did like a Black History type of series, and I talked a lot about some of the history in Evansville, about Baptist Town. And that was one thing that I did learn, was that a lot of those homes at the time had dirt floors. And so it was, like you said, it was a step up
Hmm.
to actually live in these housing projects because of the conditions of Town at the time. So
Right.
interesting. It's so interesting to me. So, are you still active with the museum or
Yes, I am. I'm
yeah.
board member emeritus right now, and we're in the
Okay.
process of doing our largest fundraiser, which is the Color of Humanity
Oh.
Gala, which we sponsor every year. And we do a um, live auction and a silent auction.
Uh-huh.
And I know this is and it's gonna be next Saturday, the 18th of October. Well, two
Mm.
weeks. And we're doing part of the silent auction. We're doing online for the first time this year, so it'll be real interesting to see how that piece goes, because that's our largest fundraiser for the
Mm.
Evansville African American Museum. And so, with a lot of funding being cut for museums, we just have to be creative and figure out what we are going to do and how we're going to keep the building open.
Right. Right. That oh gosh, I wish this actual episode was coming out in October so we could share it, but that's still great to know, because one thing I really enjoyed, I actually had a conversation with Tori, and I'm blanking on her
Yeah.
yes, Tori, she's actually
Pagoda. Yeah.
yes. So, and she's actually going to be back on the podcast. I'm really excited about, because she came on and we talked about um, the individuals that were found by the courthouse, and the ceremony, the ceremony that took place at Oak Hill to actually bury them in a proper burial space. She was sharing with me that the African American Museum had played a huge part in that, and I love that there's so many events and things that you guys are doing, and just keeping the
Right.
museum alive is beautiful in that way.
Right, right. And we're in the process of completing the Porterhouse, which is the Evansville African American Museum is diagonal from Lincoln School. And
Right.
Lincoln High School was open in like the 1920s. I want to do 28, I believe, and it was
Okay.
built for African American students. And
Right.
so the Lincoln alumni who went to Lincoln, across the street from Lincoln School, there was the housing, and it was known as Teachers Row because
Right.
a lot of teachers lived there. And Mr. Porter was the music teacher at Lincoln, and so we acquired his old house, and we're turning that into a place where we're going to be able to provide lessons, music lessons, whether it's
Wow.
theater or creative writing and different kinds of arts classes for students whose parents may not be able to pay for the private lesson. So that's our
Mm.
goal. And so our goal is to have that open by January the 1st, and to again give students an opportunity to get some lessons. And whether, like I said, whether it's in instruments or whether it's in singing, drawing, art, theater.
That is beautiful. And that's one thing I will say about growing up in Evansville is that there were always opportunities, and I am so thankful for the folks that were in my life, people like you, my mom, Miss Matthews, that were always thinking about the children in the
Mhm,
community. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
Like I think about like my mom, because she worked at the senior citizen center,
mhm,
but they
mhm.
offered and listen, I was no dancer by any means, let's be serious. But like but they offered dance classes, and I
Right,
had the opportunity to learn ballet and just the basics around that. And it, even if I'm not a dancer, it also helps with like posture and and you being able to just be in a space to like publicly speak, or just just be able to just feel comfortable in your own skin. And that is something that I think is so important, even if you don't pursue these things, to that exposure. I love that Evansville continues to do that for the youth there. That is, I
right,
love that so much. That's
right.
amazing. And so moving on into another thing that Miss Burton has actually done, which is I think is beautiful, is during the pandemic, you created Read Evansville. And how did this actually start for the youth there in Evansville?
Well, I co-created it with Patricia Winesapple.
Okay.
And Patricia and I one day got to talking after everything was shut down.
Mhm.
And she used to be the family coordinator for the Evansville Vandenberg School Corporation.
Mhm.
And we were just on the phone talking, and which was so ironic because her husband is an attorney. So I was calling to talk to him for someone else.
Uh-huh.
And we got to talking about, the young people not being in school and not
Mhm.
having any access to reading. The students, didn't have access to, some of them didn't have access to technology. And so we got to talking about providing books for students to read. And so we worked with the schools as they were giving lunches out to students, and we would give them um, new books. And then there was a group that gave boxes of food every week to families. And so we would go there and again pass out books, and people actually donated money to us to purchase the new books
Mhm.
for students. So we gave them away. And during the summer of the pandemic of 19, we gave out over 8,000 books to boys and
Wow.
girls during that particular time. And we still do that, and giving books away to different organizations, um, preschools, as people have need. And again, they're new books, and helping boys and girls learn to read, enjoy reading. And it was always interesting as we, from week to week, when we would go to the site of Swander Ice Rink in Harkey Pool, which
Oh,
isn't open anymore, is one of the places where food was given out, and we
okay.
would give books to the young people. And some of the people, as we were just kind of giving out books. How old are you? If they were a middle school student, we would, hand them a middle school book, and students would, tell us, well, I've already got that book. And so we would actually give them another one. And
Hmm.
then sometimes we, at smaller places that we would have, we would let the students come and pick their own books out. And so we still, like I said, continue to do that now, give out books.
I love it. And I guess also too, the reason why I really wanted to like kind of like focus on this is that as we have like we're in this current climate, right? Everything that's going on in this country, has there been any type of like resistance with you guys handing out books to students, given everything that's going on?
We haven't.
Thank goodness.
Um, and just trying to think, there may have been a time or two that there may have been a book that we had given out, and I remember having a conversation from one parent because we couldn't read all the books. That I
Right.
don't know if there was a curse word in the book or something that the parent didn't want, and I said, well. I'm sorry that your child got the book, and and just apologized and went with there. But one of the things that we tried to focus on, and I, for the most part, would purchase the books. I would try to get books that may not be in libraries where students of color are, even, whether it's Hispanics or, different cultures or whatever. And, we now have a Haitian center that's been open. And then we also recently have opened up, I'm not sure if what the official title is, but Hispanic, Latino center. And
Uh-huh.
so the director had asked if we had any books in Spanish. So I've been trying to gather some books in Spanish for her.
Mhm.
And we've given books to like after school programs with the YWCA. They have what they call a Live Wires program. And then even with community organizations like the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, they do a breakfast with Santa. So we've been
Oh.
able to give books to them around Christmas. And
Mhm.
there's been like Girl Scout troops who asked, and we've given books to the shelters. We've given them to, like I said, with preschool. And so anybody who wants some books and stuff, we try to give it to them, give them copies of books. And sometimes people will ask for a specific title. And if we
Uh-huh.
got funding and stuff, then we'll go through and do that. As a matter of fact, the NAACP is currently working with some other groups to do some Black history classes and stuff.
Mm.
And so one of the children's books that they're using is Born on the Water, which is the children's edition of uh, 1619. And
Oh.
we've, got curriculum that goes along with that. And so again, just trying to roll in, some of the Black history for some of our students and that may not know what's going on.
Right. That is beautiful. And one thing I don't know, I'm pretty sure you remember this, but I remember when I was a kid, because obviously, we didn't get a ton of Black history in the school system. It is what it was what it was. But I remember as a kid when Black History Day was a thing, right? And then it turned into a
Mhm.
week and then to a month. But all that to say, I remember going to New Hope on a particular day in February, New Hope Baptist Church. For those who might be thinking, what is New Hope? So there's a church back home called New Hope Baptist Church, and they offered a day for children who particular. I think it was mainly just Black kids that were there, but we would learn certain things in terms of African American history. Um, and that was so special to me because I remember growing up, my mom would always help us with like our homework and things of that nature. And it would just drive her crazy that we didn't have enough information as it relates to just Black history in this country. And that's another thing I love about the Evansville community is that we always try to educate our kids about that and other things as well, and to know that this is a thing. I didn't even know there was a children's version of the 1619 project. That is amazing.
Yeah. And again, it's entitled Born on the Water.
Hmm. Okay, I've got to check that out because I remember distinctly, like in fifth grade, and this sticks with me to this day. We had a section in a book about slavery. In the paragraph was it was literally a paragraph, and I remember my teacher saying, "Yeah, that was a really bad time. That was really," and then that was it.
Hmm.
And I just thought, and I remember going home to my mom, and I was just saying to her, I was like, that's all they said, that it was a really bad time. Like, where's the, where's the additional information? And of course, it took her and the village around us to educate us about not just slavery, but just Black excellence and history
Hmm.
in general. So that, I mean, I love that this Read Evansville thing is a thing, and that there aren't, because that's what I was concerned about. Were there barriers? Were people creating barriers around this program, to like shut out the actual information that kids need to learn that they might not be learning in school?
Well, not a yet, but probably
Right.
because it's optional, and
Mhm.
I think that makes a difference because there have been some parents here in Evansville, along with other communities, that parents have said, we don't want this book and we don't want that book,
Right.
and with all the book banning and stuff,
Right.
but as a community, I think as a whole, we've kind of held our own with
Yeah.
trying to make sure that the history of not only Evansville but also of the United States is there. And living in
Mhm.
Evansville, Indiana, and you also have to remember that we were clan, the Grand Clan from I forgot what they call it. The head person was originally from Evansville for the state
Right.
of Indiana. So, you know, so we still have some of that mindset here, but
Right.
just like everywhere, and prayerfully, it's not a huge amount of people here in
Right.
Evansville.
And that's one other thing I wanted to ask, like seeing the progression of Evansville just in general in terms of, the I mean, not even, I guess it is like this the race relations as it relates to um education. Do you see that things are going in a positive direction, or like, how do you feel like things are going, like at least for the education system in Evansville?
I think that where things are getting better, and
Good.
but you still have people who truly don't believe that children of color can learn,
Mm,
and sometimes not having the books and having things that young people, in particular males, connecting with. And
mm,
as being a retired administrator principal, one of the things that I think is sometimes we have too many women who like fiction and
mm.
really don't do a lot with nonfiction. And with boys, they like the frogs and the and just the snakes and the whole bit. And sometimes we as women don't like that. So sometimes
Right.
they don't get that,
Right.
at an early age to do that. But I think with STEM that has helped somewhat
Mhm.
in with that. And then, one of the pluses with Evansville is just the community collaboration, because even with like the public library here has authors and things that come in. And, a few years ago, they brought in Jason Reynolds, and
Mm.
who does a lot with books for middle school students. And I can remember going to his presentation, and there was a parent there that said that her son didn't like to read, and so she had given him one of Jason Reynolds' books, and he couldn't put it down. And she said,
Mm.
I then went and bought all of his books because, again, it was getting him to read.
Right.
And so, again, find that connection where students like books, and so that's why we have to make sure that we expose them to all kinds of books so that they can pick out the things that they like. And and I'll even share this, that one year, we had students who had free reading, and one student brought her Bible in, and she wanted to read her Bible. And
Mm,
the teacher was kind of like, well, she shouldn't be reading her Bible. This is a public school and blah, blah, this and
mm,
that. And I just had to tell the teacher, I said, you know what? It's free reading. And
yeah.
students can bring in whatever they want to read. You're not telling her that she has to read the Bible. This is her choice. So if this
Right.
is what she chooses to read, it's okay, because all you
Right.
want is them reading. And
Right.
so, again, helping people to understand that,
Mm,
um, is goes a long way.
right. You know, that to me, that is refreshing because I think some people, especially because I live here in New York, and when I tell people I'm from Indiana, they instantly think, "Oh, so backwards," and it's like, no, like like there are people who are forward thinking that are really trying to get the pendulum moving in the way of progression, as opposed to what you think or what you see on TV or what in the media, whatever. It's like, no, there are people who are forward thinking in that way, and even to the fact of allowing people to make the choices. Like you said, she wanted to read her Bible. No one's forcing you, and I think that's the difference. It's like allowing people to do things, not causing harm, but allowing them to, do what they want to do, express themselves in a way that is safe and that's going to, benefit them and others around them. I think that's great.
Hmm. Hmm.
Seriously.
Yeah, but the other side of that is some days you do wonder, being here in Indiana, where what planet did I come off of that's so far away from thinking. But then
Right.
one of the things that I think, the downside sometimes with Evansville, is that we don't come out of Evansville, and
Mm.
we kind of live in this bubble. And even as an educator, and I can remember that, I had a group of teachers, and we had done a workshop, and we were coming back from lunch, and
Uh-huh.
we opened up the Ford Center here in Evansville, Indiana. And this was one teacher said, well, and this has been after, it had been open, 5, 6 years. And she said, I've never been there. And I'm thinking, really?
Wow.
Because, if nothing else, you think about the circus, and, she had kids,
Uh-huh.
and just the different activities that are there. And to think that you've never been in there, just
Mm.
blew me away.
Right. And you know what? But let me tell you something. Okay, that does happen in Evansville, but that also happens here in New York. Like
I
I
know.
and the thing is, I didn't, and I think it's just human nature. Like I know people here that say, like, I live in the Bronx, who have never left the Bronx.
Right.
Like they've not gone to Manhattan or to
Right.
Queen. And I'm just like, you've lived here your whole life, and you just and, and it's just, and I think there are people like you that allow people to be exposed to new things and new opportunities. Like it starts with things like reading.
Right.
It
Hmm.
really does, and seeing like, oh, there's another world outside of my bubble, like outside of
Hmm.
Evansville or outside of the Bronx or wherever. It's like
Hmm.
giving kids and even adults the opportunity to, go into their imagination or even just whatever story that's in that book and be like, oh, there's something beyond my actual reality here in this space. That's why I love reading. And I was like, I thought this was so beautiful to talk about this because I feel like so many people are losing that, like
Hmm.
reading and taking that as a as enjoyment and also education, but
Hmm.
to create an enjoyment around it that allows you to expand your world beyond where you are, in your current situation.
Hmm.
It's so important.
It is.
Yeah. So, oh, Miss Burton, this was amazing. Thank you so much. Are there any I wanted to ask, are there any new projects that you're working on now?
Well, let me just kind of share one that I just finished. I go to Zion Baptist Church, and we just
Yes.
celebrated our 125th church anniversary.
Mhm.
And on the um, grounds of our current church, there was a school for African American uh, in that area called Oakdale School.
Oh,
And so
really?
we just put a historic marker up to mark that. And then it actually closed when Lincoln School opened. And it was basically for African American students at that particular time in that area. So I just finished that. And like I said, I'm working on um, the Color of Humanity Gala for the African American Museum, and
Right.
then tomorrow I'm doing something to celebrate our first African American mayor, female mayor,
Yes.
Stephanie Terry, and she has been inducted into the Evansville Vandenberg School Corporation Hall of Fame, and so I'm doing a recording for her, and so just excited for that. And who would have thought that during my lifetime, to
Hmm.
see President Obama, African American elected, and then first Kamala Harris, and
Right.
then our first African American mayor, female
Yes.
mayor here in the city of Evansville. So it's exciting. And
It.
then my
Oh, sorry.
personal pride and joy is my son, Alexander Burton, was elected to the state representative of Indiana, and he's only the second um, person of color from Southwest Indiana to be on the state rep. And the other one was Charles Decker, and he was a rep in like 1928. So,
Mm.
it's been, 100 years since we've had somebody of color to represent us.
Right.
So, excited about that.
Congratulations. That is amazing. That is amazing. Congratulations. And I wanted to circle back to two things. One, the Oakdale School. I didn't even realize that was even that school was even in Evansville.
A whole lot of people didn't know, and so that was one of the reasons why we decided to make and put this marker up for our 125th church anniversary, because
Hmm.
the building was actually the school is actually where we currently have our life center at the church.
Okay.
And Zion built the current church in 1967 and built it next to what would have been the Oakdale School.
Okay.
And the church used it as their educational building for a number of years.
Hmm.
And then it was torn down to build, the current Life Center. So, yeah,
That
the
is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and a lot of people didn't know that it was there, and that's why we wanted to do it, just to again from that historical standpoint, as African American history is being erased in some ways. We wanted
Right.
to make sure that we kept it alive.
That is wow. I'm like sitting here like I had no idea because I always just thought it was Lincoln, Clark, and Douglas that were the schools
Right,
in that area.
right. But like I said, that Oakdale School was closed when Lincoln opened.
Okay. And was it just because of like just
That's
because of
when they built the new school to take care of all of the African American students at that particular time, because Clark and Douglas were also closed at that particular time, and that's why everybody went to Lincoln, because
Lincoln,
it was
right?
this new school.
Oh, okay. Now this makes sense because I always wondered. I was like, okay, I heard about Clark and Douglas, but I never knew of anyone in particular that went to those schools. I mean, obviously,
Right,
it was by way of my mom. I would learn about all this stuff, but this is now I've got to go down the rabbit hole of learning more about all this as well. That
right.
is
And there
wild.
isn't much written about Oakdale School, because even
Okay.
as we were doing research for the historic marker, there wasn't a whole lot. And then
Mm.
we ended up finding a picture of it uh, during the flood of 1937, because the flood in Evansville 1937,
Yeah.
because Zion is in the area not too far from the river, but you also have to remember that the flooding came up um, all the way to um, Washington Avenue.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, and so all of Oakdale, what's currently Oakdale, or the
Right.
southern part of the city, was all underwater. And
Mm.
during that particular time, that of the 37 flood, that the people who lived in the parts that were flooded of color, they ended up having to go to Lincoln because of just being a person of color. Nobody else would accept them into their
Mhm.
areas. So Lincoln School was a place where people who had gotten flooded out were able to come to for, just to be safe.
Wow. This is so interesting to me now. I'm like, I had no idea. I remember people talking about the flood and just kind of, people talk about stuff here and there, but I was also a kid. So I was always that kid who was ear hustling. I
Right.
love because I love I love information. I love learning. And so wow, that's interesting. And it's so funny too, because my mom would always share with me that even folks all as far as Princeton, Indiana, would come
Hmm.
to Lincoln School because there
Hmm.
were no other schools for
Right.
Black children in the
Right.
area.
Hmm.
And for those who may not know, Princeton is like what, maybe 20 minutes from
Yeah. About 30.
Evansville?
Yeah. And also, it's the home of Jackie Young, who plays for Las Vegas Aces. And she
Uh,
just set a record, what's today? Sunday,
uh-huh.
for, you know, I can't remember how many points in a quarter.
Uh-huh.
So yes.
That I had no. Oh wow, this is amazing. I always tell folks too, it's like there are so many cool and amazing people from that area. It's
Hmm.
We have so many amazing and talented people from the Evansville area. It's unreal. I love it. I love it. But I also wanted to talk about this amazing experience you all had having your first female Black mayor in Evansville. Like has the climate just kind of like, has it been like, has it changed, or how are things going now that Stephanie's Harry is in office?
Well, I think it's going, and
Yeah, right.
when with Stephanie's a very intelligent young
Yes.
lady, and so I think it's going, and she has her challenges, particularly now since a lot of federal funding has been cut and a lot of
Right.
state funding has been cut, just trying to keep the city going financially,
Mhm.
and I think that it's going. And not only
Right.
do we have her as mayor, but we also have African American police chief uh,
Wow.
that along with that, and we also have for the first time two African Americans on our city council. So um, so yeah,
Things are moving in a
yeah.
pretty good direction, I feel like.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
I when I found out about her running for the mayor of Evansville, I was just like, wow, Evansville is really changing. This is beautiful. Like this is like I would have never thought, that that would even be a thing in Evansville.
You and me both. And it's kind of like for me, in my lifetime, I never thought that I would see
Right.
it. And, after you saw the president and, like I said, the vice president and then us
Right.
mayor, I'm thinking, wow. Yeah.
Slowly but surely things are changing. Not
Yes.
just in
Yes.
Evansville, but I think on a national scale. I really
Hmm.
I really feel
Hmm.
that way. This
Hmm.
is beautiful. Miss Burton, even if you are like, retired, you are still keeping busy doing your thing and just being an amazing leader in Evansville. I'm like so honored that you're here to talk to me today. This has been amazing. Seriously, you have no idea. Because honestly, to be honest, I was so nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to speak to Miss Burton. Oh, so,
I don't be nervous. I'm just nobody trying to be somebody.
I would say you are somebody for sure. You can't seriously. I'm not even joking. Thank you so much again for
Oh,
this
you're welcome.
time. This
And
was
I
awesome.
will get with Sandra, and I'll text you and say,
Yes.
where she's ready, and we'll meet at the museum. And after I talk to her,
Please, I'm seriously, please, please, please do so.
right?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much again,
You're welcome. You're
and thank
welcome.
thank you, and thank you all for listening to this week's episode of the Enemy Podcast. I will see y'all next week. Thank you so much again. This was awesome.
Okay, thank you.